What's up YouTube? Today's video is a special one. I got an amazing question on my Patreon community. The topic of the question will be narratives versus nostalgia, and this is such a great topic that I really felt I had to share with all of you guys. If in the end end up enjoying this one, please do not forget to leave a like on the video, very important, and this is the best way to show support. Like I said, this is part of a Q&A I did on my Patreon site. I put a lot of content there. I will leave the link below the video if you want to join, and I also leave a link below the video for my Discord community that is also growing quite fast. If you don't want to go that way, I will try to put a QR code on the screen that you can actually scan and check both links. Let's go into the video and I hope you have fun. Question number 1. Do you view narratives and nostalgia as different important factors when collecting key cards? This was such an amazing question that I had to think quite a lot to give you the best answer possible. And let's start with nostalgia. Well, the reality is nostalgia and narratives both can be connected to certain level, and nostalgia itself is a narrative. How many times do I talk about pre-modern and the potential nostalgia effect being one of the strongest narratives in our market? The reality is quite a lot. When a card has a lot of people feeling nostalgic for, there is a scenario that card can actually become historic. And if that's the case, that's almost the perfect scenario, since history tends to beat nostalgia in the long run. I have a video on this channel about this. I believe the title is History, Nostalgia and Potential. Please check that out if you want to have a longer opinion about this on my YouTube channel. Nostalgia is powerful and can make markets go parabolic. At the end of the day, it's also a feeling that may or may not have real investments fundamentals behind. For me, and it could be a hot take, nostalgia is actually quite overrated. Often, what you feel nostalgic about is not what other people feel nostalgic about. Could be, but can also may not be. And since we are dealing with feelings, there is also a chance that tomorrow, you guys understand, in the future, that feeling won't relate to you as much. So, very important to have all of this in consideration. In soccer, the concept of nostalgia is more related with players than with cards. Apart from, let's say, some French collector that is randomly watching this video, who watching this have nostalgia for the Henry Foot 97? Well, let's be real. No one. You can have nostalgia for Henry, and this card can be a good way to express that feeling, but for the release itself, I tend to doubt. For example, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, certain sports cards in America. There is people that when they are kids, they actually collected that stuff. I collected a lot of Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, so it's quite normal for me to have more nostalgia related with those cards than I have with releases in soccer. In soccer, it's a bit different. We have connection with the player that can also translate into nostalgia for the time you watch, for example, Henry with Arsenal, but is not related with the card itself. This is a quote I saw online that I thought was quite important to share with you guys. Historical nostalgia is often current with deep dissatisfaction with the present and preference for the way things are long ago. Before I even go more into the nostalgia versus narratives topic, let me say one thing. Again, I talk about this a lot on my channel. A lot of times nostalgia is actually related with trauma. That's one of the reasons I tend to believe nostalgia is quite overrated, but do your own research on this topic. If you go to Google, just put the titles you are seeing on the screen. The New York Times actually have an amazing article about this, why we reach nostalgia in times of crisis, but there is much more content that you can explore on this front that may change your perspective about should I invest into this idea of the nostalgia effect or not. I will say one thing, the nostalgia effect, even though it's related with trauma, it could be something that changes over time, all of that stuff I believe is true, but it's also a very powerful effect that all of us to a certain point feel in life. So moving on, and let's talk about nostalgia in soccer. Quite tricky. Like I said, I think nostalgia is a powerful factor, but sometimes quite overrated. I know I'm repeating myself on this topic, but I believe it's actually quite important. The cards you guys are seeing on the screen: Thierry Henry 2005 Panini Champions of Europe and 97 Panini Foot Thierry Henry. One is a rookie card, the other one is a card with Arsenal. This is a very good example. No one have more nostalgia for one card versus the other. Like I said, unless there is a random French collector or a collector that was collecting Panini Champions of Europe, but you guys get the point. Most of us look at this card without knowing the value, and the nostalgia effect is the same. Zero. Putting all of this in consideration, look at the prices for both of them. I would say actually one thing: most people may even have more nostalgia for Henry and this legendary time at Arsenal than actually for his time at Monaco. Why? Well, the reality is his prime time was in the Premier League with Arsenal. So that being said, the Arsenal card is $28 and the other is 6.3k. By the way, I understand there is also rarity. To be fair, the Panini Foot is a difficult card to find, but is not the most difficult card to find in our market. And this example for the Arsenal card may not even be the best, since Champions League stickers are quite easy to find, but you can find actually rare releases with Arsenal that also sell for very little. So at the end of the day, this is a macro perspective. You get the point, at least I hope so. Let's refocus. So one sells for $28, the other sells for 6k. Why? Well, the reality is fundamentals, but the most important one, I believe, is history. Rookie cards have that. The first card for a historical player, most of the time, tends to be very expensive and very important for collectors. Look, and I want to put this out of the way. I also buy random stuff. I buy Ronaldinhos with AC Milan. You guys are like, wait, what? No one cares about the Ronaldinho cards with AC Milan. Well, the reality is I'm a collector of Ronaldinho, so anytime I see a Ronaldinho that is not super expensive, that I can afford, that the entry point for me, even though I understand it's probably not a great investment, but I feel comfortable paying $5, $10, $20, whatever. I'm a collector at the end of the day, so I understand that Ronaldinho cards with AC Milan are not the best buy, but I actually feel nostalgia for Ronaldinho, my favorite player ever. I miss him quite a lot as a player, and trying to expand my collection for me makes a lot of sense. And by the way, that's totally fine. The joy I get of collecting my favorite player is more than enough. So very important to put this out of the way, because sometimes people say, oh, but look, I'm a collector, I don't care about this fundamental stuff, this nostalgia versus nerves, I collect what I like. If that's the case, amazing. Of course, I'm talking in the Patreon community, so I'm looking more at the, I would say, finance side of the market. That being said, I would love to share my example with you. So when I was a kid, the game I played the most, by the way, I still played the game today, was Magic the Gathering. It was very popular on my school, was very popular among my friends, and like again, as a kid, I also started playing the game. So the first set I remember very well, at least the set I remember opening more, was this set on Slout, and this was one of the best cards in the set at the time as kid. Now that I understand, actually there was much better cards for the competitive scene, but for me this was a powerful creature on the set. I remember on my school everyone trying to get these cards. Actually, this is just one example. There is much more. I believe in my video nostalgia, history and potential, I talk about other example, but this card was quite iconic. The reality is this card nowadays, I believe, is like $5, $10. Actually at the release was probably more, and I'm talking about a 2002 card. I'm winky for people prospecting. Long run things tend to not matter, but let's put that off the way. I don't want negativity on the video. So nowadays, you guys may find this confused, but I still love to collect Magic the Gathering, and I love to collect Onslaught cards. But again, most cards, apart from fetch lands, I know I'm speaking Chinese for you guys right now, but most cards people tend to not care. Guess what? I still collect them. But looking at Magic the Gathering in a more macro perspective, what are the cards that tend to do the best? The cards with most history, the cards that are the first. Black Lotus Alpha is probably the top of the top. Of course, Bet, Unlimited, Arabian Nights, all early sets, all of them do very well. Reserved list cards, all of them do very well. I know I'm speaking Chinese for a lot of you guys, but you guys will understand the point. So, my example, I believe, is a very good one. What I like is not what other people like in Magic the Gathering. Of course, by the way, as I played actually Magic the Gathering competitive for one point in time in my life, I also love the Black Lotus. I also love the early cards because I started understanding the game more. I started enjoying the history of the game much more. But as a kid and trying to see the cards I have the most nostalgia for are actually cards that most people tend to not care. So imagine if I try to justify my investment in Magic the Gathering on things that I have nostalgia. That most likely will be a disaster for me. But if I started, let's say when I was playing competitive, and by the way, I actually did that, investing in Magic the Gathering, more looking at the history of the game, things that can be relevant no matter the time, almost as long as the game stays relevant, that will be a much clear path, a much better path for me. And Black Lotus, of course, is the easy example, but there is much more. So now let's talk about narratives. Look, they are very difficult to predict. If you notice, I often talk about potential narratives that I believe for the future. I'm saying potential. But no one can predict the future. Of course, we can have an educated guess, and that's the best I can do. That's the best you can do, since at the end of the day, we cannot predict the future, and it's very difficult. No matter if you find a guru on internet that tells you the market will crash tomorrow, well, there is a chance he's correct, but there is also a chance that is not. And one thing that I will tell you for sure is, unless there is inside information, most of those guys are BS. On the other end, some narratives are already quite powerful in our market. For example, Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are the two most important players for the pre-modern/modern era. I think all of us tend to agree with this. Maybe we also put Mbappe, but you guys get the point. Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, yeah, makes sense. They are gods. All of us tend to agree with this. At the end of the day, this is a narrative. Of course, you can say this is a narrative that comes from the soccer world that end up getting applied into the soccer card world. I agree with you and makes a lot of sense. Of course, again, this narrative is an obvious one, makes a lot of sense, and we have their career/greatness making this narrative almost evident for all of us. Probably the most powerful narrative in our market, rookie cards. Again, very easy to understand why people love them, like them. At the end of the day, they are the first card, sometimes collectible for the player. And at the end of the day, again, is how everything got started. That's a powerful narrative. There is almost no way around that. And when you look at other sports cards market, this is probably the most powerful narrative. If you look at the modern, if you look at the modern market, at this point seems also quite clear that Prism 2014, first American big set, and Topps Chrome 2017, first Topps Chrome in the soccer card market, that nowadays is one of the most popular brands, are the two sets that most people believe can become historic. By the way, another narrative that I also believe kind of makes sense. Another narrative that goes around sometimes is, for example, 70 World Cup Panini, first World Cup Panini set. Seems quite important to me. Another narrative that sometimes go around. 2004 Panini Mega Cracks, amazing set, have one of the holy grails in the market. Some of these narratives are more powerful than others. I would say that 2014 Panini Prism seems really, really powerful nowadays. Why? Because the market kind of started because of this set, or at least that was the set that made all of us realize that, you know what, there is a different world for soccer cards. You guys understand, there is difference in powers for narratives, and I have an example for you. But before I go into that, narratives can also be manipulated by action houses, influencers, online communities, etc. Be aware of this. When I say manipulated, well, the reality is manipulated. There is a bad connection, and I understand why. But sometimes I also believe a lot of influencers that they also share things that they love, and of course, if they have a huge audience, they tend to swift the market in certain direction. I'm not sure if swift the market is even a word, but you guys probably get the point. Other times they can create. I'm sorry. Actually, let's refocus. Narratives can also be manipulated by action houses, influencers, online communities, etc. And even if they are not organic, these narratives can also often remain powerful. Guys, if you start if there is a huge influencer talking about one set in particular, if he keeps talking about that set in particular, well, look, maybe people was not aware of the set. Maybe people start liking the set more, or the card more, or the market more, whatever. So, but other times, and this is the dark side, they can create a temporary bubble, and the crash is quite bad. Normally, this in the short term, you can see this stuff quite easy. When investing with value in mind, I go much more for narratives than nostalgia. And yes, they can be connected, but they are two different things. In my mind, this is quite easy to understand. Actually, like I said, I have a couple of examples for you of narratives. So, you guys are seeing 5 beautiful Cristiano Ronaldo cards on the screen, and let's start talking about them. Well, the first one, Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks, I would say this is the king narrative. Why? Well, the reality is, guys, everyone watching this video know this card. Everyone watching this video understand how important this card is for the Cristiano Ronaldo market. From Portugal Cristiano Ronaldo is also from Portugal. Rookie card, amazing lineage, amazing history. Rarity is also, I would say, quite good. The pop report is not that high for this card. So there is a lot of things to like about this card, but the narrative being the rookie card is an impressive one. So this is the king card for Cristiano Ronaldo. I think there is a scenario that in the future maybe a one-of-one prism can sell for more, but in general, looking, especially even at base, this is the king card for Cristiano Ronaldo. Next one, upper deck Cristiano Ronaldo, and I'm putting the upper deck card, but you can apply the same logic for the 2003-2004 Cristiano Ronaldo cards at United, in this case, first season at United. This is also a strong narrative. What I mean, this is a strong narrative. Well, look, the reality is most people, look, there is not a lot of Cristiano Ronaldo rookies going around. So sometimes going for the Cristiano Ronaldo United card, especially the early one, can make a lot of sense. Apart from that, Cristiano Ronaldo end up reaching Ballon d'Or level at Manchester United. So the history in Manchester United, I know nowadays he's not looking that good, but the history of Cristiano Ronaldo and United tends to be quite amazing, especially in his early phases of career. So quite strong, I guess you guys agree with me. At this point, everyone looks at Cristiano Ronaldo 2003 cards and understand they are quite powerful. They are not rookies, but they are the first season with United, and some people may even put them at rookie material. I tend to disagree, but I think that's a fine argument. Now, the next one. 2006 Panini World Cup, Cristiano Ronaldo. Also a very powerful narrative. Why? Because this is the first card, or one of the first cards, better saying, with Cristiano Ronaldo at World Cup level. And World Cup is one of the probably the most important competition we have in the soccer world. So you can see, Cristiano Ronaldo rookie, well, that's the king card. 2003 Cristiano Ronaldo, super strong narrative. First card with Portugal, super strong narrative. Now what about this one that in the last, I would say 2 years, start getting more momentum? 2009-2010, Panini Mega Cracks, Cristiano Ronaldo, La Liga. This is season, again, 2009-2010, first season with Real Madrid. Cristiano Ronaldo ended up becoming the GOAT at Real Madrid. Or one of the GOATs, better saying. So the narrative for this one is not as powerful as the 2006 and 2003, but is also, I would say, a very good one that is gaining some momentum right now in the market. Maybe 1 year from now, maybe 10 years from now, I take a look at this video again and I would say, you know what? was a okay narrative, but right now is a very strong narrative like the other one. This is a strong possibility by the way. So let's move on to the next one. Now we are talking about the 2018 Top Scrum. By the way, the set was almost random, but let's go with the Top Scrum. The most important thing on this card is this is the first season at Juventus. The narrative for this one is quite weak. Why? Well, Cristiano Ronaldo have amazing connection with Portugal, have amazing connection with Manchester United, have amazing connection with Real Madrid, but with Juventus, most fans thought was okay, was good, but not Cristiano Ronaldo level at United or Cristiano Ronaldo level at Real Madrid. So the reality is the narrative is a bit weak. Can this change in the future? Can that narrative over time people say, you know what? And by the way, I actually quite agree with that. Cristiano Ronaldo performance at Juventus ended up being quite impressive for his age. He ended up scoring so many goals, a lot of assists. This narrative should be a little bit stronger. I believe in that. Will the market also believe in that? That I cannot answer. But right now, I think looking at these 5 cards, we see the king narrative, 2 very powerful ones, another one that I think is decent, that is gaining some momentum, and the weak one. Of course, this can change in the future. That's why I'm saying predicting the future for these narratives can be very difficult. But now I ask you the question, do you believe the Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks will not be the king card in 5 years from now? I tend to doubt that quite a lot. Do you believe people will not care about the Cristiano Ronaldo, let's say even 2004 Euro cards, actually first cards with Portugal or stickers with Portugal? I tend to doubt that quite a lot. People tend to love that type of stuff. What I believe that can happen is if the market keeps growing, if this card becomes impossible to obtain, if this card becomes much more difficult, if this card becomes much more difficult, the trickle-down effect starts putting the other narratives much more powerful. So maybe, you know what, first card with Manchester United in his comeback, that narrative is almost not even it's not even a thing. Maybe in the future could be. By the way, don't follow my opinions on this in the sense that I really do not know. I'm just sharing with you a possibility, but there is also the scenario. I'm totally wrong. Right now, this is what I believe. Moving on, and actually a couple of other examples. So, modern narratives examples. So, like I said, Top Scrum and Prism, Top Scrum 2017, Prism 2014. At this point, they have very powerful narratives. Like I said, again, repeating myself, but first big American set and first Top Scrum in soccer. But what about the other sets? Nowadays, we have Top Scrum Sapphire, Top Scrum Stadium, Top Scrum Merlin, Merlin Heritage, Inception. There is a lot of sets. Can those sets also become historic? Well, maybe, maybe not. I really do not know. But I would say one thing. I'm putting 2 random examples on the screen. Don't follow this, please. For example, 2019 is the first Top Scrum Sapphire. Sapphire tends to be very important, for example, in baseball. Top Scrum Stadium. Well, the reality is not very important in other sports, but the recent release I thought was quite successful. So maybe people will try to look at that and start to look at the first Top Scrum Stadium. Honestly, this is not even my market. I have no idea if this will happen. I tend to collect very basic stuff. I go for the Prism, I go for the Chrome, and then I focus in pre-modern and vintage. That's it. But what I'm trying to share with you is even on modern, there is a scenario that, of course, even the first Sapphire, the first Top Stadium can gain some momentum. And if you believe in that, again, do your own research, but maybe even there is an opportunity there. One thing that I never mentioned is I'm sorry, what's the name of the set? High-end set, Flawless and Eminence. Of course, those sets are also quite important. They are more on the high-end side of the market, but I also believe they are very important for the soccer card market. You can also put them in historic sets, especially Flawless. Moving on. Many narratives are still forming, and this will be the last point on my answer for this one. It ended up being a long answer, and I will go into the second question in a minute. So, Lionel Messi, very easy to understand this market. The king card, the most important card for Lionel Messi, and the market reflects that very well, is the 2004 Panini Mega Cracks 7-1Bs. Super iconic card for the soccer card market. In my perspective, probably the most iconic card in the market. But what about the second most important rookie for Messi? I think that's very, very debatable. I remember at one point in time, everyone thought that the Campion, or the Campion, that there is actually two versions, but this one, the blue Messi, could be the second most important. Why? People tend to love this photo, but that's it, to be fair. Apart from that, is actually one of the cards that have the worst fundamentals looking at the Messi market. For example, the green one on the Campion, the Catalan Fudge, is actually quite more rare than this one in good grades. Different story for another day. I'm getting out of the topic. But at one point in time, people really thought this would be the second most important card for Messi, talking about rookie material. Then I remember the Mundi Chrome start gaining a lot of momentum. Amazing card, amazing lineage. This is again the in terms of rarity gets very debatable. So there was a lot of things to like about the Mundi Chrome recently, and I believe this narrative actually makes a lot of sense. People start looking more at the Este sticker. Why? Is one of the first releases. Is also Este was probably one of the most important brands in Spain. So. But you may disagree with me. You may think, oh, you are crazy. I think the Mundi Chrome is the better one. I think the whatever is the better one. But you get my point. Many narratives are still forming. We know the best card for Lionel Messi, but we do not know the second best card. By the way, who knows? Maybe in the future the ST sticker can become more expensive than the Mega Cracks. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I think it's unlikely. That's a different thing. For example, one that I think is much, much more close is Cristiano Ronaldo sticker versus Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks. I think that's very close. Why? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is as a Portuguese collector, and I know that probably does not mean a lot, I actually have more nostalgia. I actually remember opening that sticker for that one. I know, like I said, what I believe is not what the market will believe, but I believe I can make an amazing argument for the sticker versus the card. Why? Well, the reality is in terms of lineage, that was the most important stuff in Portugal at the time, was the sticker. The Mega Cracks was basically a game for kids. No one cared about that much. On the other hand, you can say, yeah, but that makes the cards even more impressive because the never meant to be can be applied more to the card than the sticker, which again, very debatable. I'm getting completely out of my point right now. What I'm saying is many narratives are still forming, so pay attention to that. Try to understand what the market feels, what can potentially be the next narrative, because if you are very engaged into the market, you can make much better decisions. But yeah, to finish my thoughts, narratives and nostalgia, they are connected, but they are not the same thing at all. Let's move on to the second question. Second question.